So altcoins are somewhat dead, and Bitcoin is currently holding strong. In the middle of a war and panic, with the crashing of the altcoin market, it becomes a little bit of a problem. So today I'm breaking down why it's important to note that the market chaos could set up Bitcoin for one big move. Also, like this video if you've missed me for a week or so, but ultimately, let me know in the comments, are you holding Bitcoin or are you waiting? Now, I'm the first to admit I'm not fully in the loop. I've been away, birth of my daughter last Monday actually, and a lot's happened in that week and it's been a bit chaotic. So I am a little bit out of the loop. So this first segment of the video won't be fully detailed, but we will go through some stuff. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is obviously the war escalation here. Essentially, Trump has bombed Iranian nuclear facilities, which is a little bit of a problem. When you think about certain things that's happened in the past, if anyone's been around like me for the last 20 years, you'll be potentially having flashbacks to Iraq and stuff like that. So not ideal. But yeah, we've got to look at that certain situation. Obviously, Iran have vowed for retaliation and vows, you know, the big problem that I have with all of this, and it's kind of obvious, is like US people over in like the Middle East, they're going to be real big sitting duck targets right now. So we have to be very careful. But it's all over the place. This is news all over the place. It is happening right now. And when we talk about the financial market and we talk about obviously conflict, there's always a bit of a rhyme and a bit of a panic with it in terms of the obvious in the room of, you know, safety, flight to safety, which is where we're going to come on to Bitcoin in a minute, and ultimately why the likes of gold and oil will react to this, and it already has. So when we talk about the likes of oil, the Strait of Hormuz has been essentially the big element to this, right? This essentially is a critical route where 20% of global oil exports are essentially going through this area. And a closure to this would be pretty catastrophic in terms of the supply and demand area of it, obviously. And you can see here, reportedly moves to shut this side of it because of the obvious in the room here, their precious supply, so to speak, right? Now, when we talk about all this, it's going to create a surge in price over the course of the next couple of months, in my opinion. And we've seen this before in previous conflicts where we've had it with, if you remember, during, was it the other Middle East kind of battle we had not too long ago, where, you know, exports kind of stopped for certain things. This created a big old cascading effect. And when you look at obviously COVID as well, there were certain global export situations there where, you know, sand couldn't get, you know, imported or, you know, whatever from Taiwan into China, and they couldn't make the computer chips anymore, right? And it created a bit of a cascading effect. And this is a similar sort of thing where if you're going to shut off a supply of something, it's going to create a bit of a problem down the line. And again, this isn't just normal randomness. It's just like this is going to probably become a bit of a global effect right now where we're going to probably see oil prices go a little bit berserk or a little bit volatile, certainly when we talk about potential spikes or maybe just volatility, so to speak. But usually when stuff like this happens, you know, people go risk off. And this is where it's interesting. It's mainly because Bitcoin hasn't really died just yet. This is Bitcoin. It's dropped to 98,000, where that level is, and I've had this on my chart for a while. I've not looked at my charts for a while, and this is kind of where we are. And you can see there's been a little bit of an upsetting, but there has been fast liquid assets getting sold first, which you could probably argue altcoins, and Bitcoin has been holding up pretty well. This is showing somewhat strength if you look at the grand scheme of things, and these key levels of support do have to hold. They do have to hold. But the altcoins, they're down. They're really down, and they look really finished. And we'll talk about dominance in a minute. But realistically here, Bitcoin has held pretty damn well in the grand scheme of things. And this is where it's going to get very interesting to see where we go here. Now, obviously, we can talk about other markets, and we talk about whatever, and we will do in a minute. But the reality is here, there's a lot of uncertainty. Ever since Donald Trump came into power, and if you want to agree or not, it has been a bit of a spectacle. It's been a bit of a pain in the ass as well, with everything that's been going on, right? So that has not made the market settle nicely, and it's much harder for, say, altcoin investors. It's been harder for traders. It's been harder for anyone, really, to kind of get a gauge on the market, and I fully understand why people are annoyed. But that's just the reality of it, and we've got to play with the hand we've got. By the way, if you want more of my content, I do extra videos, and I've got a Discord. Jump in Patreon. So let's go on to the altcoin side of it, and especially Bitcoin dominance, because this is going a bit crazy. It's actually hit 66%. And we could talk about a lot of things in terms of the trending bear market and the others / BTC, whatever. And we were looking really good in April and May, and it kind of sucked how it kind of just turned in on a sixpence with certain news and certain situations, and it kind of created a bit of a problem. Ethereum, Solana, XRP, Sui, Solana, AVAX, Cardano, all the big assets just look like they've got no fighting spirit at all. And that's where the situation is. And this is why this is still going up. And this is why Bitcoin could be the biggest winner here. Because with a flight to safety, with a situation of like a potential conflict, Bitcoin is the safest asset out there in terms of that versus, say, an altcoin, right? That's just the reality. And I know people are upset by me saying that. But then there is no new narratives at all in terms of the altcoin market right now. Right now, today's situation on the 23rd of June, there is no narrative to say, oh, you know what, altcoin's going to fly tomorrow. There just isn't right now. You've got potential ETFs coming in the future. Yeah, maybe that's November time. But right now, there's nothing there just yet. So let's talk about some other things, right? Because others.d is making new lows. As I mentioned before, we were looking relatively good in this sort of April time. We were starting to like reverse a little bit. It just totally failed. And you can see that more on the other/BTC chart, where it rejected this level quite nicely and not ideal at all. So they're not looking great. And that is just a typical downtrend. But again, we could talk about the biggest picture in the room here is ever since, like, you can argue here, look at the state of it. That is just awful. There's been a couple of reliefs, but not enough, nowhere near enough. And that has created retail panic. That has created institutional, disinterest, so to speak. There's no feel for altcoins to run because liquidity is low. And the liquidity, sadly, for a lot of people I know, has just been running into the Bitcoin dominance chart, which has got the longest stretch in terms of its overall situation of an uptrend and strength. And people don't like to admit that. So you could argue here, there's been no reason for you to be holding anything other than Bitcoin since here, which is basically 2022. Not fun. So yeah, you can see how much that has grown. You can see what's changed. And, this is a thing. Alt seasons don't just happen because people are down and bad and hope it finally returns. And a lot of people do say that. You need a reason. Right now, there isn't one. And that's just the reality of it. So this is a total 3/BTC. And I want to say something. Rotation into strength. Dominance, yes, it's climbing. You can see that. And this is obviously dropping. You don't want that. But realistically, a rise in dominance historically equals altcoins lag and Bitcoin runs first. Now, that doesn't say that we're not going to get an alt season ever again. It just may not be as crazy as the last ones. Bitcoin and obviously the stable currency dominance is rising to risk off capital, and I will come on to that in a minute, while people are sitting on the sidelines, and especially people are getting liquidated. That will obviously increase that situation as well, certainly with the exchanges and money printing in the stable currency market. If dominance continues to rise, BTC could be repriced faster than ever expected. Basically, people panic, flight to safety, people are going to buy Bitcoin instead of, say, altcoins, as I said before. Let's talk about stable currency dominance, which is starting to do this. Now, this is obviously old analysis. We may well reject and money may rotate into the market, but that money may rotate into Bitcoin and maybe not into altcoins. Just remember that we were looking to go down here. It just didn't happen. We had an aggressive drop from 9% or 9 point whatever was it, 9.10% down to like these levels. Had a baby run, but nothing crazy, and we may well rotate back down. But as I say, altcoins are lagging. Bitcoin is running first. Why? Because Bitcoin dominance is high. So yeah, fingers crossed, things do rotate, but it may just be all into Bitcoin, unfortunately, for some of you. Oil. Let's look at commodities and the macro side of it. Yeah, it's up a chunk in 49 days of 38%. There's been a lot of tension. And this is a textbook late stage kind of commodity super cycle behavior in a way where we're getting a bit of a flap on. People are throwing missiles around and it's getting a bit of a problem and a bit of a jerk. That is where we are right now. And, you could talk about inflation. You can talk about pushback of the narrative back to Bitcoin. You can talk about gold rising. You can talk about all kinds of stuff. But ultimately, what moves markets more than anything in the world is emotion, right? If you talk about the cutoff of global supply of 20% of oil, that's going to create a problem. That's going to create the price to react, obviously. So yeah, you could talk about lots of things, and you can talk about the US dollar. The dollar is still at really weird levels. It's like, oh, okay, that's okay. Yeah, 99.28%. You would have thought that would have risen yesterday or the day before, or not so much like obviously the closed market, but over the last few days with the tension, you would have thought that would have went higher, but it actually hasn't. It's weakened. So that could be really interesting, but this breaking down could also be good for Bitcoin too. So in terms of my overall plan and mindset right now is I'm not buying altcoins as an investment currently. It's too weak, there's no trend, there's no catalyst. Simple as that, right? As much as dominance is high and it's time to buy in a way, there's nothing to tell you otherwise. You've got to wait for a couple more catalysts. And I do talk about that in other videos, and I will recommend that at the end for you to watch to showcase the signs of what to look for. Now, for me, I'm holding Bitcoin. I always have been focused on Bitcoin, and I'm still looking to deploy cash into dollar cost averaging as and when times are right for me to do so. I know, as I say though, altcoins do look attractive, they look cheap, but some of them may never ever recover. And that's where we are with the liquidity side of it. Certainly if Bitcoin's behavior is, the retail not interested and there's no interest in certain type of retail to buy altcoins right now. So yeah, Bitcoin is behaving more like a stronger macro asset. And again, you can look on the screen here, the liquidation side of it. There's a lot more liquidations now than you ever seen, certainly through the altcoins, because they're just weak and people are getting caught out by them over and over again. You need to, basically you need to stop gambling realistically. And that is where we are right now. And this is the zone that you need to pay attention, because this is where people tend to give up. And this is where people get a bit rotten by it. But also there's a lot of people that have missed out so much on the boat of Bitcoin that they're scared to touch it anyways. They're looking at it going, that's still high. But realistically, if you were like that years and years ago, you probably would have missed out anyways, because even throughout the course of the last 10 years, Bitcoin has been at highs and it has gone higher. And again, smart capital does rotate into strength, not weakness. And there we go. Please do watch this video that I'm recommending. It will help you massively in terms of how to kind of trade and invest in altcoins at the right times. But again, as I say, make it work for you. Play what you see.